My name is Ray Delgado, and for 34 years, I've welded pipelines up and down the Gulf Coast out of Mobile, Alabama. I'm 56 now, still strong enough to swing a bead in 100-degree heat, but old enough to feel every one of those years in my lower back when I climb out of the truck at the end of shift. They call me Steady Ray on the job sites because I show up early, stay late, and don't cut corners even when the foreman's breathing down my neck. I believe a man's words still ought to mean something, and a firm handshake can close more deals than half the lawyers in Baldwin County. Carla, my wife of 29 years, says I'm stubborn as an old mule and twice as hard to move once I dig in. She's not wrong. I hum old Hank Williams songs off key while I work on engines in the backyard shop, and I still think a roll of duct tape and a cold beer can solve most problems worth solving. We live in a modest brick ranch house off Dauphin Island Parkway, the kind with a big shaded backyard where I built my workshop 15 years ago. That shop is my sanctuary. Smells like steel, flux, and motor oil, with pegboards full of tools I've collected since I was Jake's age. Carla keeps the house running like a well-oiled rig. She makes the best red beans and rice on the coast, guards her grandmother's recipe like it's classified, and still laughs at my bad jokes even after all this time. We raised 2 kids here. Our daughter Sophia, who's 24 and teaching 3rd grade up in Montgomery, and our son Jake, who just turned 27. Jake was always the one with big ideas. Smart with numbers, quick with people, the kind of kid who could talk his way into or out of anything. He worked inventory management at a big distribution center north of town, or at least that's what he told us. He had a nice truck, always dressed sharp, and came around for Sunday dinners like clockwork. We'd fire up the grill, Carla would set out the beans and rice, and Jake and I would talk about fishing the bay or the latest pipeline project I was on. Those were good days. Simple. The kind you don't appreciate fully until they're gone. The warning signs started small enough that I almost laughed them off at first. Around early March, Jake began dropping by the house on weekday afternoons when he knew I'd still be out on the job. He'd tell Carla he needed a quiet place to catch up on spreadsheets because the office at the warehouse was too noisy with all the trucks coming and going. She'd make him coffee, the good stuff she saves for family, and he'd sit at the kitchen table with his laptop for a couple hours. Polite as ever. Thanked her every time. But Carla mentioned once or twice that he asked a lot of questions about her finances. Casual stuff, she said. Hey, Mom, how's Dad's retirement looking these days? Or, you guys still have that old life insurance policy from when Grandpa passed? Things like that. I told her it was probably him thinking about his own future. Smart kid, planning ahead. I gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was blood, and you do that until you can't anymore. Then came the missing tools. Nothing huge at first. A good set of sockets here, a spare grinder there. I figured I'd misplace them or loan them out and forgot. But by late April, my favorite TIG welder, the one I'd babied for 8 years, was gone from its spot on the bench. That one stung. I installed a cheap wireless camera in the corner of the workshop that same weekend, the kind you can check from your phone. Motion alerts, night vision, the works. I told Carla it was just for security after some neighborhood kids had been messing around. She raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. She knows me well enough to sense when something's eating at me. The first real alert came on a Thursday night in May. I was sitting on the couch after a long shift, feet up, half watching a ball game with Carla when my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the app, expecting maybe a raccoon knocking over a trash can. Instead, the timestamp read 1:17 a.m. The night vision footage was grainy, but clear enough. There was Jake, letting himself in with the spare key I'd given him years ago for emergencies. He moved straight to the filing cabinet in the back corner where I keep important papers, retirement statements, insurance policies, tax records, the works. He worked methodically, pulling folders, photographing pages under his phone's flashlight, even scanning my social security card on the little portable scanner he brought with him. My stomach did a slow roll. He was careful, put everything back exactly as he found it. Except I noticed later he'd swapped one original life insurance beneficiary page with a clean photocopy. The kind of move that looks innocent until you know what you're looking at. I didn't wake Carla. I sat in the dark living room, replaying the footage 3 times, my thumb hovering over the screen like it might change the truth. My own son, in my shop, At 1 in the morning, I thought about all the times I'd taken him out on a boat as a kid, teaching him to tie knots and bait hooks. The weekends we spent in the shop together, him learning to weld beads that weren't half bad for a teenager. What the hell was he doing? I barely slept that night. The next morning I called Marcus, my best friend since we were both fresh apprentices, sweating through our first pipeline jobs 20 years ago. He's the kind of guy who'll drop everything, no questions. We met at our usual diner off I-10, the one with the strong coffee and the waitress who knows our orders by heart. I slid my phone across the table and let him watch the footage without saying a word. Marcus exhaled hard, rubbed his jaw. Damn, Ray, that's Jake. He didn't sugarcoat it. You don't confront him tonight. Not like this. You get proof, airtight. Protect Carla first. Then we figure the rest. He had a buddy, a retired detective named Lynn who did freelance forensics work now. Marcus set up a meeting for that afternoon. Lynn confirmed what my gut already knew. Jake had been siphoning small amounts. Here a couple hundred, there a little more, from the joint emergency account I'd set up with him years ago for car repairs and emergencies. But the real play was bigger. He'd been preparing documents to file a fraudulent withdrawal request on my 401k, using forged signatures and a fake financial advisor letter. He'd even opened a shell LLC in my name using the scanned IDs. The life insurance policy swap was the clincher. He was positioning himself as the primary beneficiary if anything happened to me. The amounts and intent pushed it into felony territory: forgery, identity theft, financial exploitation. That I sat in Lynn's cluttered office feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. Carla cried when I told her that evening, quiet tears that hit harder than any shouting match. He's our boy, Ray, she whispered. How do we fix this? I didn't have an answer, but I knew we had to protect what we'd built together. We hired a sharp elder law attorney named Denise Moreau the next day. She didn't waste time. She froze the accounts, filed reports with the bank and the Alabama Department of Insurance, and got the distribution company's internal security involved when they realized Jake had used company resources for some of the paperwork. The camera footage, digital timestamps, and forensic analysis of the files were ironclad. Denise moved fast. Within 2 weeks, the authorities had enough for an arrest warrant. The confrontation happened on a Sunday afternoon in early June, right at our kitchen table where we'd shared so many meals. Jake walked in like normal, smiling, asking what was for dinner. Carla had made red beans and rice. The smell filled the house like always. I set the printed stills from the camera on the table first, grainy but unmistakable. Jake's face went pale, but he tried to play it off. Dad, it's not what it looks like. I was just checking some stuff for you. Helping out. Carla slid the forensic report across next. Denise had prepared a clean summary. Jake stared at it, then at us. The excuses came tumbling out. Gambling debts from some online thing that got out of hand, pressure from bad friends at work, promises he'd pay it all back. He even tried to say it was temporary, that he'd fix it before anyone noticed. Carla asked him the one question that still echoes in my head. Did you ever think what this would do to your mother if something happened to your dad? He had no answer for that. The room went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I told him the police were already involved. His shoulders slumped. For the first time in years, I saw the little boy who used to cry when he burned his first weld. Jake was arrested 2 days later. Because of the amounts and the planning, it was charged as felony forgery and identity theft with exploitation elements. First offense, no prior record, and the fact that we got ahead of it before major losses helped. Denise worked out a plea. 18 months supervised probation, full restitution including our legal fees and the missing tools, mandatory financial counseling and restitution payments. And he lost his job when the company reviewed everything. He moved to Pensacola to stay with a cousin while things cooled off. We didn't speak for weeks. Those first months were rough. I threw myself into work, welding longer shifts than I needed to. Carla baked more than usual, filling the house with the smell of cornbread and cookies like she could sweeten the bitterness away. Sophia came down from Montgomery a few times, sitting with us on the back porch talking it through. The workshop felt lonelier. I'd catch myself staring at the camera in the corner and wondering where we went wrong as parents. Marcus was a rock. Every Thursday after shift, he'd come by with a six-pack, and we'd sit in the shop, tools scattered around us, talking about everything except the obvious until we couldn't avoid it. "You did right by him, Ray," he'd say. "Gave him chances most fathers wouldn't. Now it's on him to earn his way back." He helped me install a second camera facing the driveway, just in case. We laughed about old job stories to break the tension, times we'd nearly gotten fired for stupid mistakes as young welders. It helped. Jake called on Father's Day. First time in months. His voice was shaky on the other end. "Dad, I am sorry. Not just for the money. For how I treated you. For thinking I could get away with it. For hurting Mom." I listened without interrupting. Told him sorry wasn't a one-time phone call. It was showing up different day after day. Doing the work in counseling. Making the restitution payments on time. Earning trust back the hard way. He said he was trying. I believed him, but belief and trust are two different things. About by late fall, things had shifted a little. Jake had a new job at a smaller warehouse. Nothing glamorous, but honest. He started sending weekly updates on his counseling and payments. Carla and I drove over to Pensacola one Saturday in October. Neutral ground at a little seafood place on the bay. It was awkward at first, small talk about work and the weather. But over gumbo and sweet tea, the conversation turned real. He admitted the gambling had started small, snowballed with bad decisions, and he'd panicked instead of asking for help. I told him about the fear I felt seeing that footage, not just losing money, but losing the son I thought I knew. We didn't hug it out like in movies. No grand reconciliation. But when we said goodbye in the parking lot, he shook my hand firm like I taught him. "I'm not asking to come back to the house yet," he said. "But I'd like to earn that someday." Carla and I talked the whole drive home. She squeezed my hand. "We raised him right, Ray. The rest is up to him." I nodded. "Some things you don't throw away. You wait and see if they're worth fixing."